All I can hope for today is that if I share with you these 5 of my favorite business-changing books, maybe 1 or 2 of them might stand out for you. Now, maybe you're already an avid reader, but maybe this might help you to start to change those habits for yourself. Hey there, and welcome back into the Direct Selling Accelerator podcast. I'm your host, Sam Hind, and today we're going to take a little bit of a different spin, and I'm going to share with you a little bit of a personal journey when it comes to business. I'm going to share with you a deep, dark secret right now. Many of you know I love a good book, I love a good read, and I refer to both those books that grow you, but also those books that entertain you. However, there was a period of my life up until probably 2 years ago where I could tell you hand on heart, with all honesty, that although I had bookshelf after bookshelf, because I'm an avid collector of books of all kinds, of so many growth, development, PD books, but I had never in my life ever completed a single one of them. True story. I really believe that there are 2 different habits here, or habit isn't even in the word, interests here. One is collecting books and the other is reading them. And I definitely had the interest of collection. I just really struggled with reading. And part of the reason I struggled with reading development books was because the only time I tend to read is when I'm lying in bed at night, when I'm going to sleep. And I found that books that were about growth and learning were harder for me to absorb at that time because I was exhausted and I was trying to wind down for the night, not try and reinvigorate my brain. So I realized one of the things that I needed to do was, because I really truly believe that those people who get the most growth in their businesses, etc., are those that are always learning. And I love to learn, and I really did want to be reading more. So what I decided to do was change my habits. And I am such a massive fan now of reading. Now, over the years and prior to this time, I won't lie, I was still learning, but I was doing it through audiobooks, podcasts, etc. I just really struggled with sitting down and reading a book. But today in this episode, I wanted to share with you 5 books that I really believe have changed the way I do business, have changed the way I show up in the world, and I really believe will do the same thing for you too. Now, one of the great joys I have now is I get to work with my Rise Up Inner Circle members who I mentor twice every week. And we actually have, as part of that membership, a little mini book club. And for the last 12 months, we together have been reading a number of books. And the amount of people within that membership that have said they were exactly where I was, they didn't make time to read, and now it's become a new habit for them, is just such an absolute joy. And the amount that they are growing and learning in their business is just amazing to watch. So all I can hope for today is that if I share with you these 5 of my favorite business-changing books, maybe 1 or 2 of them might stand out for you. Now, maybe you're already an avid reader, but maybe this might help you to start to change those habits for yourself. All right, let's dive on in. Now, I do have many more than 5, and I was really struggling to narrow this down to 5. But I thought, hey, if this is a popular episode, maybe we can do a part 2 or even a 3 later on down the track. But I picked some books that have got a different purpose in my world and have served me in different ways. And the very first one I want to start with was actually a book I could not put down. And I've referred this to so many people. They're all a little bit like this, to be honest. But this is one that was more of a story and journey as much as anything else. And this is Believe It by Jamie Kern-Lima. Now, Jamie was the founder of It Cosmetics. Incredible story, but the thing I love about this, and the reason I've put this one as my first book of my list of 5, is because for me, this one was about having tenacity in what you're doing. And the reason I bring this up is because when it comes to running a business, whether you have run a business before, whether you're brand new to this, whether your business is tiny and you just started or you've been doing it for a long time, I can tell you that there's one thing that is absolutely the same for everyone in business, no matter how big or small your business is, no matter how experienced you are or not, and that's this. It takes commitment, it takes tenacity, and it takes resilience to be successful. Something that Jamie has got in spades. And in her book, she talks about those ups and downs and the journey she went on. Now, as I read this book, I was sitting there myself going, man, I would have given up so many times over. And she really inspired me and reminded me that when you truly believe in what it is that you're doing, the only person whose journey it is to believe in that dream and mission and legacy that you're leaving is you. And I really came out of reading that book going, do you know what? I've got a renewed sense of tenacity right now to chase my dream, to do what I know is possible, even if it's going to be a bit challenging. So for me, business book number one to change the way you do business is Believe It by Jamie Kern Lima. Now, the next one actually relates to a question I get a lot when it comes to social media content. And this one is actually what our Rise Up Inner Circle was founded based on. Long story short, my next book that I've picked is actually one I came across in my corporate career about 15 years ago, and it's called Eat That Frog by Brian Tracy. Now, if you know me a little, and a lot of our regular listeners will know I mention this book a lot. This one for me, I reckon I've read a good 5 times. This was the very first book I completed, but I will also say I listened to the audio version of this book many years ago before I got into the habit of reading. Now, the reason this book is one of my favorites is because it's about consistency, but it's also about tasks that you do that are going to help you grow and move faster and closer towards your goal. In other words, it's about prioritizing your time, the one most precious resource that you have. So if you're ever asking the question, how do I be more productive? How do I get more out of my time? Well, this book is definitely one you want to be picking up and reading. The thing I love about this book in particular is it's only little. You can, if you're looking at the video here, it's only very small, but it is every chapter has got an activity at the end of the chapter. And if you know Greg and I, you know that we are all about implementation as you go with learning. Don't just learn and then turn it into shelf help, the book that sits on the bookshelf and gathers dust. You need to learn, do. And this book is all about learning and doing. So every chapter then finishes with an exercise, and you do the exercise, and by the time you finish the book, you've actually got some incredible stuff implemented in your business. And you look back and go, wow, I've actually achieved so much as I've read through this book, and I've had some fun doing it as well. For me, I got so many incredible ideas and direction, etc., just from reading through this little beauty here. So highly recommend this. If you don't like reading, by the way, listen to the audio version. I really enjoyed both, but I think I've probably been through this one a good 5 times now, and each and every time I get something new out of it. Love this book. So that's 2 down. Next one is actually one that's very relevant to our industry. Now, the author of this particular book is somebody who joined us on this very podcast. And the reason I love this book is because she's taken her wealth of experience and she's applied it, and she's literally given so generously of her heart, her knowledge, and her soul to help anyone in any direct selling business, whether you're in party plan or network marketing, to help you grow. This book is called Growing Your Direct Sales Team with Christine Tiley. Now, to give you a little bit of background here, Christine, and I highly recommend that you listen to the podcast episode, by the way, but Christine went through a pretty I think anybody who listens to her episode and her story will agree that she went through a pretty traumatic life event that helped her understand the power of the business she has that was literally working for her, because she'd put all of this time and effort into building essentially a little business machine. Christine is a powerhouse at creating team. but not because she's outgoing, not because she's a good salesperson, not because she's forceful. Christine is just incredibly genuine and she's incredibly consistent. She knows what tasks work, she knows what doesn't work, and she moves quickly. Christine shares in this book all of the strategies she learned over the years, many of which are not technically savvy, and shares them with you in here on how to not only gain team, but how to inspire team, how to motivate team, how to grow team. All of these strategies she used to grow the biggest body shop at home business globally. She had the most team in both Australia and the US. And these were people who were hell-bent on growing their own business. So if you want more people in your team that are also inspired to grow a powerful business, then you definitely want to check this book out. And although I personally am not growing team, I also got so much from this book just by reading how Christine keeps her mindset right, how she starts her business every day, how she operates, what she does to stay productive, her systems, and of course, how she works with teams. So for me, this was such a generous book. Again, it's not big, but it is such a great read, and I really highly recommend. If you haven't checked this one out, it was only released this year. I know it's years and years of her work has gone into this, so highly recommend that one for anyone in the direct selling industry, or for that matter, lots of people outside of it as well. Okay, so that's number 3. The next one here is one of my favorite books of all time. This is another one that I listened to on Audible many, many years ago. And actually, this is one that inspired me initially to start creating webinars the way that I did. And the tactics I learned from this book, I implement constantly and I teach them by default because they are so incredibly powerful. This book is called Oversubscribed by Daniel Priestley. Now, Daniel Priestley is a best-selling author of a number of books. You may have heard of his name before, but this one is an absolute game changer. And the thing that I love about this, it does apply to absolutely any industry, but it's about how to take your business to that next level and have people clambering over one another to come to you, to get you, to buy from you, to connect with you. And I know that all of you would love more of that, whether you are in direct selling, retail, or anything else. How do you get more people wanting you specifically? He gives some amazing stories about some of his clients, including personal trainers and other business owners who went from working in a little tiny gym to being one of the most sought after personal trainers by celebrities globally. Was this person necessarily the best at what they did? Nope. They were just very, very good at creating demand. So Oversubscribed is all about how to create the demand and have people wanting more of you by providing a little less of you, perhaps. So read this one or listen to the audiobook. I really enjoyed the audiobook version of this as well. So really good one for you. The last one for me has been probably the biggest game-changing book of all. And this one was a game changer for work. It was also a game changer for my personal life. This is a book that I came across probably around 5 years ago now. And yep, it's another one I listened to via Audible, but I ended up rereading it once I started reading again. This particular book I have recommended to so many people, and every single person who's picked it up has just said it's totally changed the way they show up in the world. Now, this book here, when I say it's good for personal and good for business, I'll explain why in just a moment. But my 5th and favorite book of all time is The 5 Love Languages by Gary Chapman. Now, the reason I love this one so much, and I actually picked this one up initially as a book to help, for Greg and I, we actually listened to it together on a plane one day to help us understand a little bit more about each other and how we could be a better couple together. And one of the things we were struggling with was this constant feeling of, I keep trying to show you that I love you and you don't seem to be receiving it. And likewise, I keep hearing from you that you're showing me that you love me and I'm not feeling it. And when we read this book, we just had this massive aha moment. Now, I am going to tell you how this relates to business shortly because this has been a massive game changer in business as well, for a number of reasons. But when we talk about personal life, we all have a core love language that we specifically speak in and receive in. And there are 5 of them. The beautiful thing about this book is it helps you understand the 5 different love languages and how people use each of these love languages to both give and receive love. Now, the really great thing about this is when you read this book, you suddenly understand the people around you so much more. You'll be looking at your kids, your coworkers, your partner, your friends even, and you'll be asking yourself, is that why they do that? Oh my goodness, I suddenly see a totally new perspective on them and on myself. And it changes how you interact with them. It actually, for me, created a little bit of a connecting game. I started to get really curious about paying attention to how people were receiving love. Now, love can relate to lots of things. You've got to show love to your customers. You've got to show love to your team. You've got to show love to your loved one, but you also have to show love to your family and friends as well. But all of these can be done in different ways. The question is, how will someone receive it? If I love to give gifts, but that's not someone else's love language, they're not going to feel loved just because I give them gifts all the time. I actually need to speak in the language they understand. And so for me, it started a new journey of curiosity, particularly with my customers. Because as I was having one-on-one calls or I was looking at them commenting on my posts on social media, I began asking myself the question, well, I wonder what their love language might be. I wonder if I might be able to show them a little bit of love by speaking their language just through social media. And it's as simple as recognizing, that person's love language is words of affirmation, or that person's love language is quality time, or that person's love language is acts of service or gifts. And so you're able to speak into that love language by doing particular things. I often joke around with my friends now about the fact that they've got a very different love language to me. And we each catch each other out in certain behaviors. And it is such a powerful thing to use, particularly in business with your clients, with your team. And when you start to get good at this, man, oh man, does it change the business game as much as your personal life as well. The other thing I love about this, just to add a little bit of an extra bonus tip here, is the 5 love languages also now comes in a version for teens, for children, and I know that there are dozens of other books by Gary Chapman as well. So if you're interested in that one, from a business and personal perspective, I highly recommend you get a copy of that. And if you don't want to get a copy of any of these, but you're interested in listening to some of them, definitely get the audio version and listen to it in your car as you drive. That for me was my little go-to when I was too busy or I didn't want to read a book at night when I was lying in bed. Now, just before I finish up, you may be asking what changed everything a couple of years ago. Well, as I realized that I wasn't gaining that extra knowledge I wanted to gain, and I loved listening to books, but there's something for me a little bit different about picking up a physical book and flipping through the pages and actually absorbing the text on those pages. And I really wanted to get back into reading. And I asked myself, what is it that's stopping me doing it? And the answer to that question was simply the time that I was choosing to read. So I decided to make a shift in my habits. Another great book for you is Atomic Habits, which will tell you a little bit about making those little tiny shifts. But we're not allowed to share any more books because that was my 5. So that was a little bonus tip right there. But what I changed was simply this. I said to myself, it's not about big changes, it's about little changes. And so I simply started during my lunch break, and it was another habit I needed to form, was actually getting away from my desk a little bit each day and having a little break, even if it was 5 or 10 minutes. And I would just set myself a little goal of, while I was eating my lunch, instead of scrolling social media or doing something that was was brain dead activity, I was just going to read for 5 minutes. 5 minutes turned into 7 minutes, turned into 10 minutes. And before I knew it, I was spending half an hour every day reading while I was eating my lunch. And that then turned into an interest to read at other times as well, because I formed a new habit. In other words, I changed who I was and I became a reader. And I really, really enjoy that now. In fact, I haven't read an entertainment book for a good 6 months now. I still love to pick one up over maybe Christmas holidays or something like that. But I'm so absorbed in reading these books that grow my business, that grow me personally, that help me grow my relationships, that I absolutely love to take that time out to spend on growing myself. And so they're my 5 books to help you grow your business and grow you all at the same time. So I hope one of those is as game-changing for you as they've been for me. It's been great seeing you on this episode again. But don't forget, if you love this episode, share it with somebody. And if you enjoyed it and you don't want to miss out on any upcoming episodes, make sure, of course, that you hit that subscribe button on YouTube or any of the podcast channels. And if you want to reach out, if you want to get to know a little bit more about what we do, you can find us at www.oksano.global. Or, of course, you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, or wherever you feel comfortable. So have a really amazing week, and we look forward to seeing you in the podcast again next week. That's it from me. Bye for now. Thank you for joining us in this episode of the Direct Selling Accelerator podcast. If you love listening and you found that this was helpful for your direct selling business, please like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can also check out the recommended video that's popped up on your screen right here. I look forward to seeing you again next time. Bye for now.